All right, so what's up, everybody? Here we go. You know what it is. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that means it's time for another Food for Thought Friday. And today I'm pulling from an article out of the University College Dublin by Rosalind O'Donovan and Eilish McAuliffe. And this article was published in the International Journal for Quality in Healthcare in 2020 and is titled A Systematic Review of the Factors that Enable Psychological Safety in Healthcare Teams. Now, if you've been following this Food for Thought Friday series, you know that I have a passion for bridging the gap between scientific literature, specifically in the behavioral sciences, and real-life, real-world organizational application. And so today, we're looking at the contributing factors and the outcomes of psychological safety in the workplace. Now, psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or bringing forward mistakes. It means feeling safe to take interpersonal risks, to speak up, to disagree openly, and to surface concerns without fear of negative repercussions or pressure to sugarcoat bad news. Psychological safety is foundational to well-being, and it nurtures an environment where people feel encouraged to share creative ideas without the fear of personal judgment or stepping on toes. And it's an interpersonal construct that exists on the individual and the group level, and it's inherently linked with increased team performance and increased team learning. Donovan and McAuliffe have identified 3 outcomes of psychological safety, and before we get into it, and we might think that this whole concept is a little bit woo-woo, psychological safety, whatever that is, but you're going to want to pay attention to the 3 outcomes, because these are 3 outcomes that are going to move the needle on your organizational objective, and here they are. The first outcome is improved team learning. The second outcome is workplace creativity, or increased workplace creativity, and the third one is increased team performance. So don't get alarmed by this term psychological safety. Oh yeah, it's a little bit woo woo. It's that kumbaya and fluffy flowers and what have you. This is organizational imperative that will move your bottom line. Now, obviously, there are more than 3 outcomes to psychological safety, but we're just going to look at these 3. Now, in a world with a global labor shortage during a current economic recession, we can all stand to build teams with increased team learning capacity, increased creativity, and increased problem solving, as well as increased general team performance. And if you want increased levels of the above 3 benefits, then psychological safety is the vehicle by which to get there. So then the real question then would be, well, how do we do it? How do we put action to strategy? How do we increase our team's learning capacity so that we can truly do more with less? How do we increase innovation and creative problem solving and ultimately increase team performance? Well, Donovan and McAuliffe have compiled a research review and synthesized the data from 36 studies conducted between 1999 and 2019, and they've identified a number of enablers for psychological safety. And these enablers, or what I've called contributing factors, can be sectioned off into 3 specific categories. And they are the individual factors, the innate to the person themselves. There are team factors, so factors that are situated within the structure and the functional elements of the team. And then we progress further from the micro to the macro level of analysis. There are organizational factors. Now, so we have this nested framework, and that makes sense because these factors inherent to the team members form the factors that are inherent to the team in a reinforcing feedback loop, and this symbiosis is then extended to impact the impact that the team has on the organization itself. So if we hire the right people and we train the right people with these individual factors, then these people compose our teams, and which in turn forms the organizational culture itself. So let's take a look. In the individual factor category, it was found that professional responsibility was a contributing factor to the psychological safety culture. Now, that is individuals who believe that they have a professional responsibility to speak up when their psychological safety was at risk, and that their voice would actually be heard. This resulted in greater psychological safety, and they were more likely to then speak up. If they believed their voice would result in a change, then they would speak up. There were other individual differences as well, such as gender. So keeping in mind that this review article was focused specifically on healthcare practitioners, it was found that females were less likely to ask for and less likely to offer opinions, as well as demonstrating a lower tendency to speak up regarding psychological safety concerns. Now, there were also personality factors such as bravery, assertiveness, and courage, which likewise increased the tendency to speak up regarding psychological safety concerns, as did greater levels of self-control. So those are the individual factors. So we've got a variety of personal individual factors which tended to increase the probability that individuals would speak up, and in turn, that in exercising voice would increase the levels of workplace psychological safety. Now, however, there is a caveat, and you can read about this research yourself and come to your own conclusion on the matter, but the authors didn't explicitly state this. However, I would strongly expect that the level to which the internal factors had any markable impact on the organizational psychological safety, it was probably mediated by the degree of symbiosis between the three levels of analysis. Okay, so in other words, if the team factors were absent, the individual factors perhaps didn't impact team safety, and likewise, if the organizational factors were absent, and then the team factors probably would not be likely to have much impact on organizational safety culture. Okay, so those are the individual factors. Let's then move to the team factors. Leader behavioral integrity. What does that mean? Glad you asked. When a leader's words and deeds are in alignment related to the psychological safety, this increased team safety. Inclusive leadership behaviors increased the culture of psychological safety. Change-oriented leadership increased psychological safety. Leaders who are oriented toward continuous change encourage innovative thinking. They encourage open discussion around errors and solutions. They encourage team members to take a greater risk toward continuous improvement. Leadership support was a huge contributing factor to a climate of psychological safety. The great news here is that there's no one-size-fits-all. The researchers found that hands-on leadership can be just as effective as a more distant, laissez-faire style of leadership, so long as the approach is appropriate for the task and the developmental level of the individual team member. You can go ahead and Google Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership if you want to dig more into that one. So, moving along. A team with greater levels of peer support. That's positive role models and strong relationships coupled with a clear, unified norms and expectations, increased team safety climate. Familiarity with the leader. That is, the level to which the leader is visible and actively engaged with the team has been found to lead to an increase of voice behaviors from the team members, which increased psychological safety of the teams. And finally, the team level analysis. Familiarity within teams was found to increase levels of psychological safety in the workplace. So what can we do? What can you do? What can I do to increase factors in our teams, to create greater levels of psychological safety in our teams? And why would we want to do that in the first place? Well, again, as mentioned earlier, organizations that have higher levels of psychological safety have improved team learning, greater workplace creativity and problem solving, and an increase in team performance. So that moves you, that moves your bottom line. That moves your bottom line. These outcomes increase employee engagement. An engaged workforce demonstrates higher productivity and far higher productivity and far higher profitability. And so regardless of whether you operate in the for-profit or the non-profit space, the outcome of psychological safety in the workplace is clear and it is paramount to the success of the organization. So let's cap it off here by examining the factors at the organizational level of analysis which contribute to the overall climate and culture of psychological safety. Now, at the organizational level, a culture of psychological safety is imperative to demonstrated safety behaviors. Now, this means that it must be the explicit intent of the leadership team to create a climate and a culture where psychological safety is the expected daily reality. To do so, we must become clear on what a safety culture is. We must celebrate and reinforce and double down on these behaviors, and we must become excruciatingly clear on what a safety culture is not. We must eliminate and absolutely obliterate behaviors which are not in line with psychological safety in the workplace. Fear, gossip, backbiting, favoritism, in-groups and out-groups. The list goes on, and I'm sure that you can add a whole lot more in here, but these behaviors must be absent if we aim to increase team learning, foster greater creativity and problem solving, and increase team performance through a psychologically safe culture. Organizational support has been found to increase safety climate. Supportive environments marked by mutual respect and normalization of voice behaviors, that speaking out and speaking up have been found to lead to greater psychological safety. And finally, familiarity across teams. So creating an environment where there are firm boundaries between teams are blended and blurred, and cross-departmental work groups are formed, they're formed, they function, they're dismantled, they're reformed in a continuous process. It's been found to not only improve organizational communication, but it improves cross-departmental trust, leading to greater psychological safety. So there you go. Whole lot thrown at you. It's a nested framework going from the micro to the macro. You've got the individual factors, you got the team factors, and then you've got the organizational factors. But there they are. They're measurable. We can move the needle. It's not difficult stuff. We're not putting people on the moon here, folks. It's not rocket science, but it is imperative to understand what we can all do to increase psychological safety in the workplace. Why? Again, it's the bottom line. More engaged, greater levels of psychological safety leads to greater levels of employee engagement. Greater levels of employee engagement leads to greater productivity on the team. Greater productivity on the team leads to greater profitability. Okay, so there you go. There you go. Hope that helps. Follow me for more.